Iran says there's enough consensus to continue on the diplomatic track with the United States to avoid military confrontation. Iranian and American officials have been engaged in a flurry of diplomatic activities after months of rising tension. The head of Iran's National Security Council, Ali Larijani, is in Oman. He's meeting the Sultan and the foreign minister. And this comes a week after Oman hosted talks between Tehran and Washington. Meanwhile, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is heading to the US. He's expected to push President Donald Trump to expand the negotiations to include Iran's missile program. Tehran has rejected those demands, warning they could have a destructive impact on the diplomatic efforts.
European countries miss past opportunity to play a constructive role and fail to act independently or positively in diplomatic processes, instead choosing to follow others and making serious miscalculations. Their recent decision to designate part of Iran's armed forces was both illegal and a strategic mistake. Rather than persisting in such actions and media rhetoric, they should reflect on how to restore Europe's role in regional and international affairs. The EU and European states are in no position to impose themselves on diplomatic processes unless they stop choosing a destructive role, which would benefit no one.
Joining us from Tehran is Abbas Aslani. He's a senior research fellow at the Center for Middle East Strategic Studies. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. I want to ask you first of all about this visit by Ali Larijani to Oman. Now, the foreign ministry is kind of playing this down. They're saying it was already planned. They're going to be talking about a wide range of issues. I understand he's coming to Qatar after Oman. But is it a coincidence that he's making this trip at a time of regional tension and, of course, in the middle of these nuclear talks?
Rob, Larijani also earlier made a visit to Russia, which makes it important. And following the recent talks between Iran and the United States in Muscat, this also is significant. And Iran seems to be escalating the level of engagement with the regional players who are mediating between Iran and the United States in order to somehow clear the bottlenecks maybe. And we are at a time that mostly the decisions are made at capitals. This is the political level, decisions. So Larijani seems to be facilitating this process in order to expedite the speed for any progress in the process, and he's going to go to Qatar, who has been which has been mediating between Iran and the U.S. And when you put all these visits together and you place it again into the context, it is somehow meaningful in relation to the talks with the U.S.
Now, if I understand it correctly, it's usually the foreign ministry which broadly is coordinating talks like this. It certainly centers as a center point for it. Now, if the National Security Council is involved, what does that tell us about the way that Iran is viewing these talks?
Rob, this is a kind of, let's say, whole of the system approach. We are seeing a synchronization between, the foreign ministry which is negotiating at the table. We have the National Security Council, as well as the president, who has been engaging with his counterparts in the region in order to make the most of the time currently, because any gaps between the negotiation rounds could be, a window for vulnerability. We are seeing that other saboteurs or spoilers are trying to somehow torpedo the process before the talks gain traction. So that's why we're seeing different officials from the country, meaning Iran, are engaging with regional players in order to stop that process, to facilitate the process, to make sure that they can move toward any likely progress.
I was mentioning before that Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is heading to the US. He's going to try and persuade Donald Trump to widen the negotiations out to include Iran's ballistic missile defense system. But that is something that's already on the table, isn't it, as far as the US delegation is concerned? If that does not appear as part of these negotiations, what action do you think Israel is likely to take?
Iran is insisting that it is only focused on the nuclear matter, and there was a skirmish before the previous round in Muscat. And they seem to be agreeing that they need to discuss the nuclear issues. That's why they sat at the table in Oman, last Friday. And let's not forget that diplomacy does not occur in a vacuum. As we are seeing that the Israeli Prime Minister is visiting the United States. He's trying to somehow complicate the process and manufacture a deadlock, leaving Trump administration with no option but military escalation. And things are not only happening at the negotiating table, they are permeable to the, let's say, toxic winds outside the negotiating room. So that's why we are seeing that in parallel to the Israeli efforts in the United States, Iranian officials in the region are making these visits in order to make sure that they can somehow stop those relentless efforts by Israeli side to sabotage the process. So by the time that we have the next round, a potential next round taking place between Iran and the United States, I think these efforts will continue. And even if we have the next round being held, this will not stop, and they will try to see if they are succeeding in stopping that process to pave the way for a military escalation between Iran and the US in future.
Abbas Aslani is from the Center for Middle East Strategic Studies, and we're grateful to you for being with us on Al Jazeera. Thank you very much.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.